All right, Nick, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a team who had a great season last year, made it to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and they even returned 80% of their starters around both sides of the ball this offseason. I think this is great news because they had a really good draft as well. There's one guy in particular when you talk about the undrafted free agent realm that I think the Bucs have picked up that could really potentially be something special. Let's get into the article and we can talk more about this player on the other side. This, of course, is from over on Bucks Game Day. It says, according to Bleacher Report, one of the Bucks' undrafted free agents will have a pretty great shot at making their roster. Versatility remains king in today's NFL. While Kalen DeLoach could be classified as a tweener, thus muddying his initial projection, the former Florida State standout has the instincts and coverage abilities to wear multiple hats for the Buccaneers. Head coach Todd Bowles, last spring, Tampa Bay struck gold by adding hybrid corner safety Christian Izien post-draft, and DeLoach would give Tampa Bay another versatile skill set to roam at varying depths this fall. Nick, I think this guy sounds very interesting, and I love that it's already a prototypical type of player that the Bucs have had success with in the past. I think that makes it even more valuable for them. Curious what your thoughts are, but Bucs fans, in the comment section below, as we look through the later rounds, day 3 type picks, the undrafted free agents, and we come in to rookie minicamp, training camp, OTAs. I want to know who you're the most excited about seeing. Who do you think is going to rise to the top and stand out to be the cream of this class? Let us know in the comment section below. But Nick, what are your thoughts on this latest undrafted pickup by the Bucs?
So I had totally lost track of DeLoach. I think the way Florida State ended their season with the injuries at quarterback and things like that, and a lot of prospects sitting out their bowl game against Georgia, is a lot of people kind of forgot about Florida State, certainly on defense. They did have some great defensive linemen, but DeLoach was a huge playmaker who just got better and better and better during his time at Florida State. If you go through his stat line, it's pretty impressive. So in 2021, he had 1 sack and 6.5 tackles for loss. In 2022, he had 3 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss. And in 2023, last season, he became a superstar, 10.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 2 passes defended, a fumble recovery, touchdown, forced fumble, right? So this is a guy all 3 seasons had more than 60 tackles as well. So this guy's a productive playmaker. The reason he fell out of the draft is because he's not 6 feet tall. He's less than 5 foot. He's about 5'11 and a half, according to NFL.com. Has small hands, isn't particularly big, not long arms, right? And so people look at that and say, he's a small linebacker. How's that going to work out? And I get it. The concerns are valid, and that's why he fell out of the draft. But the reality is he's just a really good football player, right? I brought up his stats, but according to the analysis and you look at his film, he's even better than that. This guy just has a nose for the football. He's an instinctive player. He's incredibly quick and athletic. He ran a 4.47 40, so he's fast. He had a 30.5-inch vertical jump, a 9'11" broad jump. Again, this is courtesy of NFL.com. So we know he's a great athlete. And if you look at his next gen stats breakdown, here's where it gets crazy. He is, in terms of his production ranking, he was the 7th linebacker rated. In terms of athleticism, he was 18th, but that's strictly because of his height. So even factoring in his height and everything into the fold, he actually ranked as the 13th best linebacker according to Next Gen Stats in this past class. You got the 13th best linebacker if you're the Buccaneers in the undrafted free agent realm. That's pretty good. If you got the 13th best linebacker in the 5th round, I'd call that a steal. But to get him after the draft, that's great work by the Bucs front office, pulling this guy into the fold. And look, he's just a good football player. He's got a great mentality. He's a great athlete, played good competition, right? Good coaching. Mike Norvell, the head coach at Florida State, runs a really smart kind of NFL-esque kind of program. So we know he can handle going to an NFL environment that obviously the Buccaneers will have. Again, across the board, this is a great addition by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think people are kind of slept on DeLoach just because I think he's just a better football player than his draft status would lead you to believe. I think he not only has a chance to make this team, but have a big impact on it as well.
Yeah, Nick, and if you go through all the accolades he won last season, we know this guy, like you said, is a star in the making. Second team All American, first team All ACC, had that big fumble return for a touchdown, 56 yards, and team captain. So we got to love that as well. Plus, throughout college, only missed 1 game due to injury. You got to love that. Best ability is availability. And I think we all forget that a little bit too often. But when you talk about this guy's size, he kind of brings back a specific player to memory for me. And that's, a team that Florida State beat this year in LSU. Talk about Patrick Queen. That's a guy who came into the draft He was 6 foot. I think, right on the edge of 6 foot. So DeLoach, pretty similar in size to him as far as height, and he can fill out. But I think Patrick Queen, he had success, but people knocked him because of his size just a little bit. Said he was too small to play middle linebacker, but he found a niche in this league and really turned into be a bright star, got paid this offseason. I think DeLoach is one of those guys who can come in and find one of the new roles that the NFL is making in these hybrid tweener type of players. If you're not quite a safety corner, you're not quite a linebacker, there is a market nowadays because everybody wants guys who can do multiple things, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They want linebackers who can set the edge and become, edge rushers as well. And they also want linebackers who can maybe go into coverage and do kind of things like that. You almost think of Kyle Hamilton type for the Baltimore Ravens as well, who's a guy who can play linebacker but also can play safety as well. I think this is the new era of football. I think DeLoach is at the beginning of this. We're just seeing the value in these type of players. So I think because of that, they were able to get a steal of a player in a guy like DeLoach because people just don't see the value quite yet. But obviously, as I said, they do because they have a player that fits that mold already. So I think this is a huge one. I think we're going to see this guy pop up more and more this offseason, making big plays throughout camp.
Well, and you brought up being ahead of the game here, and here's another element to this, right? Is that obviously with the new kickoff rules, special teams is going to change completely. You need to be a little bit bigger. No longer can you rely just on corners and wide receivers on special teams. You need to get bigger, stronger to handle with these new rules coming down. And you've got a guy in DeLoach who's very thick, very powerful, and fast. So even if the defensive transition doesn't go well, or at least takes some time, he is an impact guy on special teams the moment he steps on the turf. I think this was a great addition by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I love the way you put it. It's forward thinking, getting ahead of the curve. Tampa has proved themselves to be. And I think this move is another example of just that.